Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the debrief for the 2019 Belgian Grand Prix. Well, I don't know about you lot, but I thoroughly enjoyed that race. We got a good strategic scrap at the front. That was a mouthful. A very tight midfield and a fair bit of overtaking as well. Yeah, alright, the DRS was seriously powerful, but it was great to see drivers going wheel to wheel, literally in some cases, and really battling each other hard. To be honest, it was a good race and a very fitting tribute to Anthoine Hubert. Let's start then, as we always do, by having a look at the full race result. Charles Leclerc took his first ever F1 win for Ferrari ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Sebastian Vettel came home fourth in his second Ferrari ahead of Alexander Albon and Sergio Perez, with Daniel Kvyat 7th and Nico Hülkenberg 8th. Pierre Gasly finished 9th on his return to Toro Rosso, and Lance Stroll took the final points for Racing Point. Lando Norris so unlucky to end up in 11th place for McLaren, and then it's Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean in the two Hasses. Daniel Ricciardo was 14th in the second Renault, with George Russell in 15th, Kimi Raikkonen 16th, and Robert Kubica rounds off the finishers in 17th. And your retirements list for the Belgian Grand Prix is Antonio Giovinazzi, Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. Whilst we're looking at tables, let's go over the updated championship standings, starting with the drivers. Lewis Hamilton continues his march towards a 6th world title. He remains top on 268 points ahead of teammate Valtteri Bottas on 203. And despite his retirement, Max Verstappen continues to round out the top 3 on 181. Sebastian Vettel is 4th for Ferrari on 169, just now ahead of Charles Leclerc on 157, with Pierre Gasly 6th for Toro Rosso on 65 points. Carlos Sainz is 7th for McLaren on 58 points, with Daniel Kvyat 8th on 33 points, Kimi Raikkonen 9th on 31 points, and Alexander Albon has already jumped his way into the top 10, now on 26 points, and you can see the rest of the standings right there. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes also continued their march towards another title, although Ferrari did slightly close the gap this weekend. They're second on 326 points, still a massive margin though. Red Bull obviously remain third on 254, and then McLaren are in fourth with 82 points. Behind them it's Toro Rosso in 5th on 51, Renault in 6th on 43, with Racing Point moving ahead of Alfa Romeo this weekend into 7th on 40 points, with Alfa on 32. And then your bottom two teams are Haas in 9th place on 26, and Williams still have that 1 point in 10th. Right then, as ever, it's time to run through all of the teams, starting with Ferrari. And as I said there, it was Charles Leclerc who took his first ever career win on Sunday, and it was a thoroughly deserved one as well. He was super quick all weekend. He managed to take pole by a pretty sizable margin as well, and then went on to take that pace into the race. Although, to be fair, during the race it wasn't quite as dominant. I'm also not going to lie, by the way, with Hamilton closing him down towards the end, I really did think that he was set to have another victory snatched away in the final laps. But it was a really good drive by Leclerc, and it was a very fitting victory as well. Although he did absolutely drive well, there is also a very good chance that Leclerc would not have won the race without Sebastian Vettel's, let's say, help. So how it played out, Ferrari chose to pit Vettel early in order to cover off any attempt by Mercedes at the undercut, and that pretty much compromised the rest of his race. Leclerc pitted later and came out behind Seb, and it was immediately clear to everybody watching that the team were about to have a decision to make because Charles was so much quicker on the fresh tyres. Vettel was asked to let his teammate through, which he did, and that for me was absolutely the right call from Ferrari. However, because he was struggling on his tyres, Seb was caught by Hamilton pretty quickly, and this is where Vettel played a key role for Leclerc. He was able to defend really well despite his tyre issues, and he held Hamilton behind, allowing Leclerc to build a decent lead. Once Hamilton was through though, it didn't take long for Seb to pit for fresh tyres, but in all honesty that was pretty much it from Vettel, apart from obviously him setting the fastest lap later on. Given that the gap at the end of the race was less than a second, I am almost certain that Lewis would have taken that win had Vettel not held him back. That was really good team play from Vettel, but also from Ferrari. That won't have been their strategy at the start of the race, absolutely no way. But they saw it unfolding and they reacted accordingly. Spot on in that respect. At Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton wasn't too happy with the team's decision to leave him out as long as they did, but as I've already covered, it very nearly paid off in the end. The most important thing, I guess, for Lewis was that he finished ahead of his teammate and his main title rival. With all due respect to Ferrari, Leclerc and Vettel, none of them are going to be challenging for the title this season. And I think Mercedes, although of course they want to win, can be pretty happy with the result, because it did look after qualifying as though Ferrari were just going to disappear in the race. They were so quick and they looked like they were going to dominate. But when it came down to it, on race pace, Mercedes were right there chasing them all the way, which is what gave us such an intriguing battle at the front. I do wonder though if it will be a very similar story at Monza. I mean, it's not all that similar a track in terms of layout, of course, but it's another very quick circuit. Super quickly before moving on, there were some very interesting radio exchanges between Hamilton and his engineer at one point, with Lewis saying that the Ferrari's pace was, quote, not that impressive. I know that's not really a big thing, but it's worth a mention. Bottas, he said post-race that the car's pace felt okay, but for me, he seemed a bit off the pace all weekend. I mean, apparently he turned the power unit down before the end of the race to save it, which is absolutely fair enough, but even prior to that, he didn't look like challenging for the win. That being said, he did have half a go at Hamilton after the safety car restart, but felt better of trying to go around the outside of Les Combes, which I think was probably the right call. But I'd probably describe Bottas's entire weekend as quiet, really. But again, as I've said basically all summer, he did what was expected of a second driver at Mercedes. He picked up a podium and followed his teammate home. Having said all of that, it should be noticed that Bottas said that he feels his performance on Sunday was his best around Spa, a track he does tend to struggle at, so obviously he's fairly happy with the result. But as I kind of touched on earlier, I really feel like Sunday's race has set us up very nicely for Monza. More of the same, please. As for Red Bull, well, it was a very mixed day for them. We'll start with the positives, though. It was an exceptional drive from Alexander Albon on his debut with the team. He started all the way down in, 17th place, and still managed to make his way up to 5th. Yes, I know at worst it's the third fastest car on the grid, but given that it's his first race in that car for that team, that alone is seriously impressive. But the way he did it, he deserves a huge amount of credit for. He ran the contra strategy, if you like, if that's even a phrase. It is now. And although his first half of the race was a bit quiet, as in he struggled to make up much ground early on, his second half was seriously good. We saw some aggressive and exciting overtaking, not least his late-braking move up the inside of Magnussen at the bus stop, but also a truly awesome overtake around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo at the corner with no name, or X, or whatever it's called. Fantastic move. All in all, I would say the perfect way to start for Red Bull, and it will give him such a confidence boost going forward. There was one incident he was involved in with Sergio Perez late on. Basically, he went for a move down the Kemmel Straight, Checo moved over and Albon kept his foot in, completing the overtake with 2 wheels on the grass. The stewards had a look at it, the investigation being about whether or not Perez forced Albon off the track, but they decided to take no further action. And I think that's the right call. As Jonty said last night, when you watch the replays back, it just looks like a bit of a miscommunication, if you like, between the two of them. His teammate, however, had a day to forget. I think that's pretty fair to say. After crashing out on lap 1 after making contact with Kimi Raikkonen at turn 1, which resulted in his Red Bull's track rod being broken, he wasn't able to steer and went straight into the barrier at Eau Rouge. That all came from a bad start pretty much again. Max said after the race that his reactions weren't great when the lights went out, and as he released the clutch he got a load of wheel spin. Look, I stand by what I said last night. Racing incident for me. People are obviously blaming Max, saying he shouldn't have been in that position, but then some of the same people on other posts on social media are applauding Norris for putting his car in that exact same position and making up places. So, yeah, of course Norris wasn't literally in exactly the same position because you can't have 2 cars in that spot, as was shown. And Norris didn't make any contact with anybody else. But the point I'm making is that is the risk you take at turn 1 in Spa. If you put Norris where Verstappen is at that point, Kimi is still going to turn in and contact still happens. It is just one of those things. I'm also pretty sure there is no way Kimi can see Max in the mirrors. For one, according to Raikkonen, he's trying to avoid Bottas, who slowed down, so the last thing he's going to be looking at is behind him. But secondly, the Red Bull is so far over, and with the pretty poor, if you like, field of view that these F1 mirrors have, I just can't see how he'd have seen him. For me, 50-50, one of those things, racing incident and all that jazz and all those cliches. I'm a little bit surprised that Verstappen chose to continue after the contact because it was clear that car was not going to steer. I mean, every time he tried the wheel, nothing really happened. Maybe it was a little bit out of frustration because he'd had the bad start and the contact, but it was clear that his car wasn't going to steer, so I think he would have been better just stopping before Eau Rouge. Maybe he thought he could have got back to the pits. I don't know, it's all with hindsight now. I will add, though, before moving on, that is it for his title chances. Now, I know he would have needed Hamilton and Mercedes to have the most ridiculously awful final 9 races to win it, but based on how he has been performing, he was a title outsider. Again, a very long shot, but an outsider nevertheless. Good day for Racing Point with both drivers picking up points, and Perez was very pleased with his performance, understandably. He was able to keep himself out of trouble in that first corner, and although he did lose a few places, he fought very hard to take them back. One of the most entertaining drivers of the day. By the way, awesome to see him, Raikkonen and Gasly going more or less 3 wide on the run down the Kemmel Straight. That's what we want to see. Honestly, there was some great racing in that midfield, as I'm sure a lot of you know. No need to say any more on the incident with Albon, as I've already gone over that one, but Perez did say that he was frustrated to lose that place on the final lap, which I think we all get. Lance Stroll was pretty racy as well on Sunday and took 10th despite starting down in 16th. Stroll did say that he was frustrated by the fact that he spent the whole race in traffic and felt like that cost him a lot of time compared to those around him. But with all due respect, that didn't stop Perez. The pace was clearly in that car. Lance did make a cracking move on Grosjean though. He caught Roman napping, threw it up the inside, and despite the two banging wheels, he got the job done. Now, Daniel Kvyat once again did what he seems to do just about every weekend at the moment and recovered from 19th on the grid to wind up 7th. That guy has been excellent this season. He was another driver who was just on it when it came to overtaking and was understandably delighted with his performance after the race, saying, quote, "We had many overtakes, good tyre management, a great strategy, and today we also had the pace to be competitive. We put everything together and I'm really happy with my racing," as he absolutely should be. If Albon doesn't deliver at Red Bull, which based on what we saw Sunday he probably will, but if he doesn't, Kvyat's got to be in with a shot at that seat, surely. Pierre Gasly's return to Toro Rosso was alright in my book. Okay, he finished behind his teammate, but he raced much more aggressively than we saw when he was in that Red Bull. He was getting moves done and appeared to have some decent pace. Obviously, there's still a lot there that he needs to improve on, but for his first weekend driving that car, the 2019 Toro Rosso, I do think he did alright. France Tost, by the way, confirmed post-race that the team did swap their two drivers around on track because Kvyat had the fresher tyres on and was much quicker as a result, as with Ferrari and with any team at any race for that matter. It's a call that makes total sense. Renault had a mixed Sunday, but Nico Hülkenberg grabbed some decent points, and to be fair, some much needed points. He avoided all that chaos at Turn 1 and gained a few positions there, but to be honest and to repeat what I said last night, I really do not recall seeing all that much of him. Even the race highlights on F1's YouTube channel, there's only a clip of him passing Grosjean, but I feel like that's more because of the contact between Stroll and Grosjean that came moments later. So yeah, a quiet one, but points at the end of it all for Nico, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Daniel Ricciardo, however, a very disappointing day indeed for him. He had some pretty hefty contact in that first corner, to be fair, which resulted in floor damage, and the Aussie said post-race that he thought that the team may even have to retire the car because of how much damage there was, but obviously in the end they didn't and he managed to continue. However, he did pit to put on the mediums and took them for a whopping 42 laps, basically the whole race. All I can think is that Renault were waiting for a safety car because otherwise that strategy makes no sense. 42 laps on one set of tyres. Then again, as I've said many times before, I'm not a strategist, so there may have been some method to their madness. But I guess damaged floor, tyres that had run a race distance, it's no surprise really that he did become a little bit of a sitting duck in the end. Now, of course, it was an incredibly difficult weekend for the whole team and indeed all the teams and drivers. But I really do want to reiterate what I said during last night's live stream. I have got such huge respect for every single driver and every team on the grid for how things were handled yesterday. Formula 1, Formula 3, the entire motorsport community can be very proud of how they paid their respects on Sunday. Lando Norris was on the brink of picking up a brilliant 5th place finish and was awarded Driver of the Day from the fans for it as well. However, as he made his way onto the start-finish straight for the penultimate time, his McLaren ground to a halt and he pulled over just after he crossed the line to start the final lap. Absolutely gutted for him. At time of recording, by the way, I haven't seen anything official on what that issue was, with McLaren just saying that they will work with Renault to understand what happened. But in all honesty, I actually prefer Lando's explanation to Sky Sports where he said, "The thing that gives me power stopped giving me power." That'll do, we don't need any more than that. But overall, honestly, a really good drive from Lando, who was very much in control of P5 and some smart driving at Turn 1 as well. As I said earlier, and as we saw with Verstappen, that can easily go wrong if someone turns in. Quickly on Carlos Sainz, his race was pretty much over before it really even started. He lost power on the formation lap and as a result was very slow to get away when the lights went out, before then cruising around briefly and retiring. Again, no official word on the cause, just that the team will work with Renault to sort it. Down at Haas, yeah, another very poor Sunday. K-Mag spent pretty much the whole first stint of the race going backwards, saying that he felt helpless, which is understandable, and also said post-race that he was really struggling for grip on the soft tyres. However, apparently things did improve for him once he had switched to the mediums, but by that point the damage was already done for him. Roman Grosjean says that he was initially happy with the car, and to be fair, he did look like he was going to be on for some good points. But he got caught up in all the traffic and due to the poor straight line speed of that car, obviously just way too much drag, he just could not make progress and instead found himself falling through the field. Something he was fairly miffed about over team radio, which I think we all totally get. Certainly I do, because for me, I think he drove quite well. So yeah, I get his frustration. The worry for Haas is that it's Monza next, so there's a good chance things are not going to improve anytime soon. Something rare, Williams are not last in this rundown. There's your story. Yeah, obviously there are reasons, but still. George Russell described his overall race as a lonely one, but said that the team were very much expecting that Spa would be their worst race of the year. Reading through the team's post-race release, because let's face it, we never really see anything of the Williams boys. Apparently he had to take evasive action at turn 1 and then got caught behind a slow Verstappen, and that cost him time and places. Not often a Williams can claim that. His teammate had to start from the pit lane, of course, which meant on the positive side, he was able to avoid all that drama early on, and Kubica said that the car's race pace was, quote, not too bad. He did have a bit of a scrap towards the end, fighting to keep Kimi Räikkönen behind, but apparently as Vettel lapped Robert, Kimi was able to take the place in the DRS zone. I should also mention that the result on Sunday means Williams keep their 100% finishing record. If nothing else this season, they've got that. And finally, Alpha. Kimi started up in 6th place and was in a great position to pick up some hefty points. However, that contact with Verstappen at the first corner, he took a lot of damage there, and that was basically it for his race. And at one point in that incident, by the way, he was up on 2 wheels, so it was quite a whack. Not really an awful lot to say about Kimi. He never recovered from that, which you can kind of understand. But when you get a minute, go and check out Kimi's team radio if you can find it. It might be on the F1's official YouTube channel by the time this video goes out. But the best way to sum it up is that he wasn't best pleased. And finally, Antonio Giovinazzi, such a frustrating end to what was set up to be a very good day. He was looking on for points and was driving seriously well as well. Possibly, in my opinion anyway, his best drive of the year so far. Unfortunately though, on his penultimate lap, he crashed heavily into the wall and that was it for his race, obviously. So close to what would have been a well-deserved points finish. Now, during last night's live stream, some of you said that you thought that Gio had a puncture, but at time of recording this video, there is no mention of that whatsoever from the team. So as it stands, it does go down as driver error, but still some positives to take away from the race for Gio. Before I go, I do just want to give you an update on the condition of Juan Manuel Correa. As I said last night, he suffered fractures to both his legs as well as a minor spinal injury in that horrific accident. His condition was officially described as stable. But last night, a tweet was put out from his official Twitter account which said the following. After 4 hours of surgery, Juan Manuel has started his recovery. He will be in intensive care until tomorrow. His family, considering the sadness of the tragic event, is thankful to all the fans who are sending messages. When his condition will be more stable, Juan Manuel will be transferred to the USA. Of course, my thoughts are with his family at this incredibly difficult time, and I'd like to take this opportunity to wish him well in his recovery. That is it then for this video, but as is the case with these debriefs now, behind the eye at the top right of the screen, you can rate the race by voting in the poll. And also don't forget that you can let me know your thoughts on the race down in the comment section. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.